8.4, we have Kelly and Matthew on the Auckland Film Protocol Policy Revocation. Kia ora to you both.
Thanks for having us. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Horrocks toko whanau, ko Matthew toko ingoa. Matt Horrocks, I'm the manager of Screen Auckland. This is Kelly Boyd, who is our project lead on this. This is the close of the process, not of a start of one. Film Protocol has been through an extensive process of consultation with industry and also with various members of the Auckland Council group, and also working with various iwi and hapu who have also been part of a consultation process for sites and places of significance. So we're looking to revoke the existing protocol, and I'm going to get Kelly in a few minutes to explain why we're taking that process, but it's very much about reducing the burden of compliance for all filmmakers, but in this case very much particularly for the some of the smaller operators. We are operating in a very competitive environment internationally, obviously, and we compete with our beautiful locations, with our cast and crew and studio, but we have a term that's called film friendly, which refers to the ease of operating in a region in terms of regulatory compliance, and that's an internationally observed term. And the reason I flag it today is that it doesn't really matter how good your locations or your people are, your studios are, if people turn up to do a film and they can't actually do it because of regulatory concerns, it doesn't go ahead. So we've had a big campaign on that. Part of that's cultural in terms of can-do attitude. Part of it obviously working with iwi and hapu for the new kaupapa that we established with sites and places of significance. Part of it is the relationship we've had with community and business and right across the Auckland Council group. And we really saw that with the big project, the Reading Crew, which we did here 18 months ago, and it looks like we've landed another one on the basis of that. And seeing as I am here with the council, I would like to thank the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, and I think almost all the councillors here, if we haven't encountered you, we will yet, who have been really helpful. Councillor Baker, there's a big zombie shoot down in your region. Thanks for that, Steer, 2 weeks. There's a lot of zombie shoots at the moment. Yeah. And so, I just want to acknowledge that it is absolutely critical to our sector is to have that support and endorsement. So it's really appreciated. So I'm going to pass over to Kelly now to talk about why we've taken this particular approach.
Hello. We're here to ask the committee for three things today. Firstly, we want to note Auckland Council's ongoing commitment to Auckland as a world-class film-friendly destination. We are asking to revoke the Auckland Film Protocol and instead note that Screen Auckland will manage Auckland filming guidelines as an operational document with the aim to publish it in July 2026. And as for some background, the Auckland Film Protocol originally was adopted in 2013 as a policy with the purpose to create consistency in how filming was managed across Auckland Council as a new super city. And it was refreshed again in 2019. So it's now very dated. One example is following the Auckland Unitary Plan Change 106, we have a new process for managing filming on sites and places of significance to mana whenua, which we need to now integrate into those guidelines. We looked at multiple options, but after communicating with regulatory practice, social policy team and public law, we agree that the best vehicle for managing our operations is an Auckland filming guidelines document and to revoke the official Auckland Film Protocol so that Screen Auckland is now managing those operations and not needing to come back to the committee every time we want to change something routine. It gives us flexibility to keep up with a fast-moving industry, and it will enable us to allow flexibility for those smaller scale shoots that pose very low risk to Auckland's public places. We did trial the low impact scheme with the local boards. 15 of 21 accepted this pilot scheme, and we received no complaints from local boards or members of the public, so it was very successful. What we're wanting to do is allow our public trading events and filming bylaw to carry the regulatory weight, and instead our guidelines will focus on communicating to the screen sector and how we administer that bylaw. We're not asking for any changes to our delegation or any landowner rights to local board members. So the ultimate aim is to reduce unnecessary regulatory requirements for that low risk, low impact activity so that we can focus our time on those larger scale activities that do have more of an impact on our spaces for members of the public and our economy. As for engagement, we've gone to all local boards on this. None opposed. We did receive various feedback on specific locations and visibility over filming in those regions, and we'll be working individually with those board members to satisfy those requirements. Because they're operational, it doesn't pose any inconsistency on our customer side. They still have the regional consistency, and we are managing those inconsistencies internally as our process. So we're not asking for any regulatory guardrails to change. It's just simply a formality to wrap up a very long process. The bylaw is up for review. That's being managed by regulatory practice, and we are having input as subject matter experts to achieve our goals and trying to shift the alignment of our regulatory processes onto those to again allow us to focus on the bigger stuff. And yeah, so hopefully we can achieve our goals. Over to you, Matt.
Cool. Thank you both. And I think, yeah, very clear point at the end there that this is a sort of procedural decision item after a very long and quite a thorough process. So thank you very much for that. I know Councillor Henderson's got a question. I know you've also asked to move it. So happy for that.
Thanks, really appreciate you accommodating me there, Chair. I got two cues. So first and foremost, just while you're here, because it's a public meeting and I think these things do need to be socialised and put out to the public, can you just briefly explain the benefit to Auckland's economy provided by the screen industry?
Sure, thank you, Councillor Henderson. So it's about $1 billion a year in physical production spend. I like that stat because it's a hard number through Stats New Zealand. The greater industry is between 1 and a 5, 1.8 billion. So obviously we're not tourism, we're not tech, but we are significant. A couple of stats I like. One is that about 40% of film budgets goes on labour, and about 80% of it is not actually spent on set, spent on catering, security, the local hardware shop, transport, all of those good things.
Fantastic. So my last question is just on points 47 of the report, where it's the risk section, and it points out that maybe there might be a perception that there will be a reduction in supporting filming, and that's the opposite of what I want. We want to support it as much as we can. So I just wanted to know if you could talk through that and just assure us that actually this is about supporting filming more rather than less.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So yes, it's very much a focus on the smaller productions, reducing their compliance levels, because they're a bit like small businesses. They're actually more vulnerable to regulatory weight than the bigger ones. And so it means that they're being permitted in a much more efficient manner. Like we say, we do have the enforcement mechanism of the bylaw, but this will make it much more operational and much more nimble.
Thank you for everything you're doing. Awesome. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Patterson-Hamlin. Member Wilson.
Thank you. Same question, except as it relates to mana whenua. What do you see as, and can they be measured, the benefits for the Māori economy?
Well, the benefits for Māori, and I'm reluctant to speak for Māori, is just, first of all, the sites and places of significance mana whenua that we established that Kaupa last year is unique in Aotearoa and in the world. So it requires all productions to engage with Māori, specifically with relationship to whenua, but it's not just about the land, it's about the wider relationship with businesses and with talent. We have quite a high level of engagement of Māori in the industry as it is, on film crews and all aspects from writers, directors, producers, actors. Obviously, we're very excited to have Taika Waititi and Cliff Curtis partnering with Jason Momoa to buy the studio out west. That also, I think, relatively unique internationally. So one of the good things about this new Sites and Places protocol and this change that we're doing is that we can focus a whole lot less on the regulatory and a whole lot more on the actual productive relationship.
Thank you. So I guess there was a ready answer in the 1.46 bill that it generates. I guess my partai is of that, what mechanism do you have to indicate how that benefits the Māori economy? Not necessarily the engagement component part that you've already undertaken, but if this revocation was to come into form, it will benefit the wider Auckland. But what about Māori mana whenua specifically, economically?
Economically, so we don't have specific stats on that because all our stats are across production overall. One thing that we can do with this and with the Sites and Places protocol is that we will actually know how much filming is happening on iwi and hapu whenua, which we didn't know completely. So we are then in a position to be able to assess the economic impact, which we haven't been able to previously.
Thank you. That'll be a good line that I wouldn't mind seeing the results of in terms of we're always looking for the economic Māori.
But what is it?
Yes. Where is that and what's the mechanism? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good, thank you. And yeah, it would be good, whether it's the ED office or Tātaki or whoever, to help us with, there must be a way to measure Māori businesses, mana whenua businesses, and whether,
We do have
I know there
procurement
is some
requirements within Tātaki.
Yeah.
So we do feed into that, yeah.
Yeah, so it won't be accessible on all productions, I'm sure, but there must be a way to get out some of that celebratory stuff. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I'm a little confused. We're bringing together a lot of strings that weren't in this before. I was on the Waitaki Rangers local board when that protocol was sort of discussed and came through and everything. And I remember that the tension between the environmental protection aspects and how beautiful the area is to the film industry for doing filming in. How I always champion the film industry because whenever they leave it better than they came, in my opinion. They're very good. But it was well accepted at the end by the film industry, as I understood it at the time, by mana whenua, by mātāwaka, by the general public out there, that it was fair and reasonable. And one of the problems that I heard from the film industry, and I went out to Warapu when they were filming, I forget what it was,
The
well-known
Convert,
film
was
there,
The Convert?
yeah, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
You know, the building regulation regimes was driving them nuts. That was, and it all gets taken away 10 minutes later. So if I heard you right just now, you were talking about doing away with this and relying on those sort of building regulations to manage the situation.
Well, we had a particular situation a few years ago where sites and places of significance were made subject to a full resource management consent. And I imagine that's what happened here. And so that is obviously a very inappropriate tool for filmmaking, and it didn't work for filmmakers. It also didn't actually work for iwi. And it was part of the unitary plan change that we got accepted last year, was removing that. If you are building large structures, then it will sometimes fall under the Resource Management Act, but that is unusual. And that production was one of our learning moments. Another one was we had a project chief at war. Obviously, your whenua, your area has got the highest, yours and Shane's have got, is where the majority of the film production is taking place. So that relationship, particularly with Te Kauramaki, is absolutely vital, and it's where we've had a lot of the learnings about how to make things a lot better.
So why don't we just take away those? We can't take away those resource management requirements. Is that what you're saying? Is the new?
That's outside my remit, but I'd love you to. But
Are the new resource management draft documents viewing any of this stuff?
So the bills do have a higher threshold for requiring consents for things. So I couldn't comment off the top of my head over temporary structures or things like that, but we can ask.
Yeah, we can check it out and work with you when we see the new RM framework.
yes,
But then we also know that there'll be a point at which we'll need to review our plan to to make it consistent with that. So there's another opportunity coming if we want to look at that and bring that to the councillors to say, hey, do you want to change up some of those requirements?
Thank you. Yeah, we see the upcoming bylaw review and the potential changes to the Act is the big opportunity to move things to a whole new level of simplicity.
But I think it's a really good point on, a temporary structure in a floodplain for a 2-week filming shouldn't be less.
So my last question is, what I just know how much work went into this protocol, and how it seemed to have come up with a unanimous acceptance by all parties. Why would we pull it away before and leave a hole before all this other changes and things have been?
Oh, because we have done these guidelines and they've been consulted with industry, so they are ready to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The mahi's been done. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're revoking the old to bring in a really positive one officially. I mean, it's technically already there, but I think to your point, Councillor Turner's really good point on how we further improve what they're already having to justify and go through as part of that. And the RMA reform might be one place. So definitely get a response on that. Thanks, Councillor Gillan.
Oh, thank you for this. I'm just looking at your impact table for the proposed film permits, and the local board consultation is either none, notification, or consultation. So this is taking away any landowner. No, it's not. It's not taking away the landowner permissions.
So landowner approval still exists. What we're looking at is a form of pre-approval mechanism. So we've liaised with the boards on this. Some boards still want to be notified of all of that low-scale activity, but all of them are happy to not require explicit approval on those activities. So currently, we need them to respond to us, which means it's requiring their time to go through, review the film permits in detail and come back to us with a response. And for very low scale activity, that's quite a time commitment for those board members. So what we've provided is a mechanism for us to say, we've got this, we understand the regulatory requirements, can we proceed? And most of them responded, yes, we're happy to receive no notification. Some of them requires a notification still, and we will be providing them with reports. All local boards are reports of that activity. So they still have that visibility. What it is that administrative burden that we're trying to alleviate.
So it won't be until you get to a medium level, according to this table, medium level, before they might actually be consulted. But anything lower than medium level will be just notified.
Yes, we will always invite a response. We absolutely welcome any board members to come back to us with any feedback if they want to. We're certainly not closing that door on them. But it gets to that medium threshold where we start to have items that we do need to hear back on them about. There are certain sensitivities, but it is very activity and location specific, which is why we can't do a blanket medium impact, but that's where the nuance starts to come into it.
And you're happy that what you're proposing complies with all the different classification levels in the Reserves Act?
Yes, we're very happy with our regulatory compliance. We've made sure to consult with public law on it, our governance advisors and social policy to make sure we're across everything.
Thanks, Councillor. Mayor Brown.
Thank you. The proposed Table 1 notification, that's what you're going to move to. Okay, from at the moment, it's a notification for anything, is that right?
At the moment, we require a response for everything.
So in other words, that's what stops people just taking a film off the Birkenhead Wharf is illegal now, which is insane. How is the costs of policing this compared with the income you get from fees? Presumably, if you don't have to do stupid little ones like that, it might be less of a loss maker. And then it says in here that the operation guidelines for filming around the public trading events and filming bylaw, which I'm not overly familiar with, but does that set the level of how much you get back from these things? Because you've got ultra low, low, medium and high. Presumably these people pay us more. And how do they set their fees? Or is that just cost recovery, or what is the business? It doesn't sort of refer to the costs in here, just.
So the costs was revised recently under a directive from the governing body for us to become cost recoverable. Previously, we kept 20% of all fees and the rest went back to the local board areas. After our directive to become cost recoverable, the agreement is that any overlap, any additional revenue will go back to the various areas. However, we are not cost recoverable with our fee structure, and we're not going to be, so we don't have any fees that can leak back into those areas. But by reducing the amount of administration required on low impact, that effectively reduces the cost required to spend on those low risk permits that don't generate much in terms of income.
Mr. Mercer, we generate about $350,000 a year in fees. Paradoxically, we're actually incentivised to have more films going with less fees, and to reduce, that revenue take. But we are looking at moving it more to some of the bigger productions, like the international ones, if they're shooting at sensitive sites, like, for example, out at Tahinga, which is pretty unique, for them to pay more. But we're conscious also that we're competing internationally, and that the real financial benefit to the city is the $1 billion being spent on physical production. Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. So, I mean, it's a bit like the building inspectors. They get more building if we gave them free building consents, but that wouldn't work very well for a long time. So as long as it's neutral, you are aiming for neutrality in costs, I hope.
Yes.
In that case, that's okay. I support it.
Thank you.
The small ones. So we will let people know this if it becomes public, which is good. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Councillor Lee. Sorry.
Yes, the previous protocols, if I recall, were formulated after quite a lot of thought and discussion, and they have been updated on a couple of occasions, 2013 and 2019. It seems that your motivation here is that you can make these operational changes without coming back to the committee. Is it right? How often do you have to make these operational changes? If you hammer out a protocol, why would you have to have changes?
So currently, the way the protocol is written is a combination of.
If you just want to speak closer to your
Apologies.
mic. Sorry.
So the way the current protocol is written is a combination of policy and operational guidelines, and so what that means is our operations are very tied into that, and that means we cannot update unless we come back to committee with, and so we've refrained from doing so in the past, and we've kept it to the every 3 years that it needs to be reviewed and refreshed to update it to regulatory requirements. So now that we're wanting to update our operations quite significantly, we believe this is a much better vehicle to do so than coming back every time we want to update. We want that flexibility.
You want the flexibility. I suppose any commercial entity, and I guess you guys are commercial kinda, would welcome any deregulation, but the thing is, the motivation for the protocols was not just that Auckland be a film-friendly city, but also an environmental-friendly city, and that was the key concern, because most of the filming that's done is commercials and so on. Quite often it's to do with the motor vehicle sector, whatever. The concern is of SUVs or four-wheel drives surging up pristine beaches or across pristine bush streams, and that protocol was to try and manage that, and now you want it abolished. I find it's not really convincing.
I don't know if the protocol that we have did protect that pretty strongly. It's obviously evolving. We do monitor that, and it's an evolving issue, particularly with, like you say, pristine places, and particularly a big overlap with sites and places of significance to mana whenua. And there's some quite easy cases. You don't want a liquor commercial in an SUV on a beach, or a tobacco commercial. I mean, those are quite simple. We get into other cases
but I mean, we have a protocol to safeguard those sorts of things, but it's up to you really. But I'm sure you're a sensible person, but you may not be here when the pressure goes on for a filming activity that may not be what you would agree with, or me, for instance.
the local boards certainly have an opinion on that, and the iwi and hapu have an opinion on that, and the industry do, which is broadly in alignment, which is that we want to have a viable commercial business, but we, the collective we, the industry and Aucklanders, also have a collective view about, you know, what we're prepared to advertise.
Yeah, but
But you're saying the
should have a
protocol as we had
protocol
protected that.
the local board should have a protocol to work from, which had been carefully hammered out by all the stakeholders. I mean, have you talked to the Friends of Regional Parks, or have you talked to the Royal Forest and Bird Protection Society, for instance? Because we're talking about environmental impacts essentially. Have you talked to them?
Yeah, so the one thing that is really key is that the screen industry have a vested interest in keeping these locations beautiful because that's how they make their money. So the protocol is a pretty low level of regulatory compliance versus all the other mechanisms that come into place. So we're talking, we've got the Regional Parks Management Plan, we have the various mana whenua protocols that some of them are currently working on. We don't manage Dockland, they do that themselves. We're very relationship based, and we do still have to follow all other regulatory requirements that are in place. And after reviewing the protocol in detail, a lot of it was regurgitation for mechanisms that already existed. So we felt comfortable that we weren't decreasing those layers, but we were allowing us flexibility in how we issue those film permits. So those conditions will still exist. We will be ensuring that the environmental protections are still in place. We're in regular liaison with our, for example, Cody dieback specialists. All of those subject matter experts do have an opinion on our film permits that go through. So while we absolutely appreciate all the work that went into the previous protocol, it was a lot of work, we now feel it is an outdated vehicle for updating those operations where those protections still exist and are still in place.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Filipaine.
Tēnā koe he mana. Matt, good to see you. And greetings to you both. Look, my question is a process question. So I know I was part of the committee that ended up approving 2019 at the Environmental Community Committee. So Matt, isn't it, looking at the 4 recommendations, isn't it from a process perspective, when you revoke something, that something is in place
Yes.
to replace it? So I know with the attachments we've got their draft, or they're no longer draft. I know in the attachment it's still got draft on there.
They would become active if this motion today is accepted.
Okay, so just the process, because it doesn't explain that in the recommendations, because it's got staff approval. But what you're saying, yeah, it's got staff approval, but this committee, is this committee the committee that will, once we approve this, that then your draft becomes
Will become the guidelines.
the protocol?
Active. Yeah, except we won't call it a protocol.
So, I mean, it didn't, maybe it's me,
it is a
it's
good
got
point,
staff
yes.
will approve, but I'm assuming the committee has approval. As a result, that becomes operational. Yeah?
Sorry. So that's in part because we were going to continue to call it a protocol, and it was a week or 2 ago that we received the advice from Public Law that we can't revoke a status, we need to revoke the entire document, and therefore we need to rename the document to Auckland Filming Guidelines. So that's why it's a little bit unclear in those recommendations, because they were a bit of a last minute change.
Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it's clear that once this is approved,
Yeah.
2019, I agree with revoking it, because we have the 2026,
Correct.
which is on our attachments as draft. That becomes the protocol, for want of a better term. I don't know whether that, but look, I'll leave it to you. I just wanted to point that out.
That is correct, Councillor, yes.
Pardon?
Yeah, it was a bit.
But it could have been clearer in our
Yeah,
recommendation.
and
Correct, yes.
that's all. I just wanted to clear
Yes.
for the public.
It was more because
To know.
technically we don't approve, like, it's already exists
Yeah,
as long as we
it becomes active.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit confusing because, but yeah, it's like technically not our decision, but it is, we need to revoke this to enable the new one.
This to become
replace.
alive, yeah.
Do you believe we need to spell it out, or is it just, because it's automatic if we revoke? but I'm wondering if we need to make it
Because
clearer.
we have that delegated authority to do the guidelines, so yes.
So Chair, I don't know whether anything in here is that once this is approved or B is approved, the attachment, which is, I think, still draft, becomes operational or whatever words to that
Yeah.
effect.
I wonder
That's
if
all.
I wonder if it just says in C. I wonder if in C it just says that note the revocation of the 2019 protocol enables staff to approve the
Could we maybe put
because
a
it's not
date on it?
what I don't want us to get confused that it's already been delegated. They can. This is their guidelines. That's our guidelines, but we're not approving the guidelines. We're just revoking the old ones. So this is the problem with being too prescriptive.
I just want to make it clear that once this is revoked, what we have in our agenda will then be the protocol or the guidelines. That's all. That's all I want, is just that once it's done, it then, see you later, revoked 2019. This is now operational, for want of a better term. That's all. But I only put that up just to make it clear, but it looks like it's not clear. Killed up.
Maybe under D we say the draft operational guidelines will become.
We could put a date on it, make it 30th of June, 1st of July. That would be a good clean date, yeah. Yeah, thank you, Alpha. Yeah.
We'll get that sent through. Yeah, but I just want to make it clear that revoking automatically makes the guidelines that have been worked on
Correct.
like them. Well, technically they're operative right now, but we revoke the others as a procedural. But we will just get it confirmed through the words, so there's no confusion. But maybe if you want a brief toilet stop, anyone, we'll just have a 5-minute break. title after, in the agenda. It's the film protocol. There's two different names. Auckland Film Protocol 2026, Auckland Filming Guidelines 2026. But we'll just chat to the staff about getting that correct. But you understand that now it will become operative, so that's clear. We'll go back to the questions. Councillor Turner, you might not remember your question now. Cool. Okay. Right. I'll just get you both to step back from the table so we can debate this if there is debate. Otherwise, Councillor Gillen, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will not be supporting this. I know that the governing body is concerned with costs and timing and being film friendly, but I'm very concerned that this is not in keeping with the intention of the Reserves Act. I'm actually disappointed and surprised that the local boards have supported this when they've been allocated the authority to govern the reserves under the Reserves Act, and should be satisfying themselves that every application adheres to the classification of the specific land parcel within the reserve. Most of the classifications are to ensure that any activity is to the benefit of the reserve itself and not to council's bank balance. I think we've got this the wrong way around. So look, we're not here just to enable flexibility and get things done as fast as possible when it comes to reserves. So I will not be supporting this. I don't believe in the intention of it.
Thanks, Councillor. Is there any other speakers? Councillor Henderson.
Sorry, I was rushing to push the thingy on resolve. Thank you. Yeah, look, I'll be hugely supporting this, and I really thank and acknowledge the staff that work in this space, and actually the industry that surrounds staff in this space as well, because goodness, I looked it up after asking the question. Last data I saw was $1.5 billion a year to the economy, nearly 9,000 Aucklanders employed, most of them in my ward. And that's just direct employment. That's not people shopping in the cafe. That's not people doing all the kind of incidental things that help support a screen production. So it is hugely important to Auckland's economic development that we are screen friendly. We've been advised by staff that this is the way forward to make ourselves more screen friendly. We've had discussions about economic development and its importance recently as a council. So we need to back one of the most successful industries that we have to bring in the dollar to this city. So I would encourage everybody to support this, jump on it and back it. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I'm going to support this, but I've got a word to both the two councillors who have spoken before me. We have a lot of industries that bring billions of dollars into this city and this country that we regulate up the wazoo. So, you know, I think that's not the argument. What the argument is getting it right for this industry to operate properly. And it's my experience that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and the real problem sits elsewhere. So I'm saying yes in the trust that the people who are doing this and the stuff we do coming forward, leading on from here, brings us the right results. Thank you.
Kia ora, thanks, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'm hugely supportive, actually, Chair. I think Councillor Henderson has said it from an economic perspective, but this is about helping the small people. This is about helping small filmmakers. It's about helping small business to support those small filmmakers. And I think we should do everything that we can to promote small business. It's our biggest industry in the city. And over and above the economic benefit of film is the wider hashtag New Zealand Inc., Auckland Inc., that is transcribed around the globe as a part, which is showcased via film, especially international film makers. So just to Councillor Gillen, I think I'm a bit confused because I did hear your question around the Reserves Act, and I did hear the answer that you'd gone to legal and you were happy with that. I also did hear that local boards were really happy with it from a landowner perspective. So I really think that you've done a lot of work to tick all the boxes. I want to support the film industry here in Auckland. I want to support small business, so I'm very happy to be the seconder to the motion. And I do know that Westies love their filmmaker, and as an industry employer for that particular part of our city, this is particularly strong. So very happy to have my positive voice to this.
Kia ora, Deputy Mayor. Member Wilson.
Thank you for the presentation. Look, I just want to acknowledge the work and effort that went into the mana whenua engagement, which would be hugely, if not done well, would be quite a substantial obstacle, especially as it relates to reserves and the like. So I just wanted to say that there's a lot of effort and work. There is economic benefit, everything that we can all agree on, and the last thing I wanted was the demonstration of the Māori economic growth. So we would support this as well. Thank you.
Kia ora, Member Wilson. Councillor Ferry.
Oh, kia ora. I just wanted to put a shout out for the lesser observed screen and film locations that we have across the rohi, in terms of, obviously we've had a bit of conversation here about some of the beautiful places, but we also need to make it friendly and accessible for people to be able to film in industrial areas, in vacant shops. Indeed, in our own Aotea Square, where they were filming the Power Rangers, I used to see they used to use that concrete wall that's right at the back there. Yeah, I'm sure Andy does think zombies are better, but Power Rangers are apparently where it's at. So just to recognise that, yes, this is about our parks and open spaces, but it's actually also about our streetscapes. And it's also about streets and homes and neighbourhoods and all sorts of film locations. And I think about cities overseas that often stand in for other cities, like Toronto often stands in for a range of other places. And that's not about their beautiful, recognisable landscapes. If that was why they were used, you would work out it was Toronto and not where it's supposed to be. So there's a role here for those smaller backgrounds to be accessible and easy to use as well. And I'm pleased to see this progress. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor. Councillor Lee.
Yes, I think the procedural issue that Councillor Filipaina raised is quite revealing. If we were really concerned about better regulation of the film sector as an industry that we would like to sustain, we would have emphasised the new guidelines, which were a better way of going about things. But actually, this was really all about a revocation of the protocol. And as I said, the protocol is something in the past that has been very carefully worked over with a lot of buy-in from the public and stakeholders, and has worked more or less successfully. Some of the arguments I've heard about, we've got to maintain employment and successful business and so on, members would be horrified that those self-same arguments were used by special interests in certain industries to justify opposition to any regulation. Tobacco sector, for instance, used those self-same arguments. The Deputy Mayor talked about New Zealand Inc. Well, New Zealand as an Inc. is not doing that well. What New Zealand is known for is the 100% pure brand. In other words, whether you think that's valid or not, the fact is the environment is our greatest treasure. Councillor Ferry talked about other places. Industrial sites, for instance. I'm not too sure we've got too many of them left, but there is of course, Auckland's wonderful special character and heritage areas, but actually this council wasn't very concerned about them either. So I come back to the environment, and I believe that what we are doing here is replacing a protocol with guidelines. and even the guidelines seem to be an afterthought that we remembered thanks to Councillor Filipina. So essentially, this is just another exercise in deregulation. But what concerns me is that what we are not giving due consideration for or placing importance on in New Zealand Inc. is our natural environment, which really is our greatest treasure. And that's the area that is likely to be impacted on by deregulating, replacing a protocol with guidelines. That is the area that is likely to be adversely impacted on. So the whole principle of it is wrong in my view. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor, thank you. Councillor Winiata.
Councillor Lee, I certainly appreciate everything that you're speaking to. I think that there are many good things to come through this, and I would ask, doesn't need an answer, but who remembers the spaghetti westerns? So spaghetti westerns are named appropriately or as such because Italy was a country where you would go to film your westerns because of the cost to do so was so cheap. So if you look at the amount of movies that New Zealand is appearing in these days, most recently Predator Badlands was a big one, utilising a New Zealand star as the Predator. Parts of that I thought was filmed overseas in Europe somewhere, but we're utilising more and more assets around the country in terms of our views. I'm very supportive of this. One of the things that you spoke to, Councillor Ferry, is access. My cousin, Michael Winiata, is a young budding filmmaker. Access to entry is extremely important for young filmmakers to be able to get things done. They'll either get it done as a guerrilla approach to guerrilla filmmaking and do it anyway, or they can follow the process if it's easy. And if it's an easy, user-friendly process, then people will get on board. But the careful thing there is making sure that everybody respects the environment that they're in, and that nothing is being done without the appropriate oversight. Because we do want to make sure that we retain that 100% pure New Zealand before and after the large film crews have left the site. But I think if this opens up access to entry for a lot of young and budding filmmakers, they will keep coming back when they take those steps forward, much like Taika Waititi has with his career. And I know that we have more budding filmmakers to come forward, and this hopefully is additional to that. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor, thank you. No other comments? I just want to say, yeah, this is fantastic. Awesome to have support from the local boards. The process with mana whenua has been robust, and I've heard really positive things through that. And I think we had a report to one of our committees middle of last year on the direction, and it's very clear around disturbance to whenua, to protection, and to partner with mana whenua. These big filming companies and little ones are working with the mana whenua of the area, which is really, really cool. I have heard stories over the years of, local boards or our processes completely stopping production. So there was a really cool Disney production that went to Australia because the local board of the day made it too difficult, too onerous, and they just said, you know what, we're going to go over, and that the businesses in the area, a whole lot of people were pretty dissatisfied about that. But there's lots of good examples. Beginning of last year, there was this really cool, was it East of Eden or something, what it was called, in Devonport, where they literally put sand right across several streets and no one could access their driveways for 2 weeks. They had like a little buggy, horse and carriages, different things, getting people to their homes. They had to have their lights on and off at certain times, but the community loved it and they felt really engaged and really understood the process. There was a buzz around. I've been under Te Oniwa Pa with filming there with people, abseiling down the side there and mana whenua were on site being part of that process. So there's lots of good examples, and I think this is just helping cement that good relationship, that good example. Over $1 billion a year for our city, and it's all those ancillary businesses, the businesses that benefit from the workers being there. I know the film crews and have to use local catering and local, you know, I remember up in QMU with one of the productions that all the, the building companies sold out of wood and all the different things that were for there. So there's a lot of good that comes out of this. To Councillor Turner's point, there's obviously other opportunities across other industries to support and make things less onerous for them too. But I think this is one place where we have a clear ability to do some good for the economy, for jobs and goodness. Our city needs the jobs and the variation of jobs that come with this type of operation. So yeah, great to have this in place, and I think this is just the one final step of a long process. So I want to acknowledge that. All those in favour? Any opposed?
Opposed.
Councillor Gillan would like to be recorded against. Thanks. Thank you. Awesome. Right, we'll move on to our 8.5 Indigenous Biodiversity Strategy. We have Mandy and Dave coming to the table. Kia ora.